we're going to look at another Masters of the Universe commemorative figure. This is Man-at-Arms, the Master of Weapons. Man-at-Arms was introduced in the very first wave of Masters of the Universe figures. So he was a 1982 release. On the back here you can see most of that original release represented with He-Man, Teela, Beastman, the disgusting Stratos. I have some issues with Stratos. Merman, Skeletor, Man-at-Arms of course, and Zodak. And again it's listed, although it says Zodak is not available here, they did release a commemorative version of him, I know because I have it. And I'm pretty sure there's one of Stratos too, but Stratos is so... I just don't like Stratos. There's also a very large 90-day limited warranty, so I think that's expired now. Although this has the copyright as 2000, so there must have been a couple years of the commemorative series being released. He's one of the early ones of the commemorative line as well. Pop Man-at-Arms out. That was a particularly awful one. He comes with the mini comic King of Castle Grayskull, which is copyright 1981, so maybe is he even earlier than I thought? I'm not sure. And here's the man himself, Man-at-Arms, also known as Duncan, which was his name in the Filmation series. He originally, in the mini comic, started out as just kind of a renowned warrior for being a master of every weapon with some remarkable armor that saved his life a few times in the mini comics. As he developed, he became Teela's father, which is kind of complicated because he's not her biological father. Teela originated as basically part of the goddess of Grayskull, who predated the character being renamed as the Sorceress. Goddess of Grayskull, or the Sorceress, was technically Teela's mother. Master of Weapons comes with only one. He comes with a pretty simplistic mace, but he does have the Power Punch feature, which is a spring-loaded action, so he can both slap people with one hand and bash them with his mace in the other. The elephant in the room is, of course, that Duncan Man-at-Arms has no mustache. That was added by Filmation to give him a more fatherly appearance. But he comes with lots of armor accessories. He's got his pauldron and arm guard, and also shin guards, and his breastplate piece with a bunch of various technological gadgets molded in. On the back it's a little less impressive because he's just kind of a mess of tabs and things. He's extremely ripped also, as everyone in the Eternia universe. He's also kind of oddly wearing a full-on green bodysuit, even over his hands. Goes all the way up to his neck and head. So let's see how the commemorative stacks up to an original Man-at-Arms. And wow, there's a lot of differences right away. The molding on the back of this original one has a 1983 stamp on it, and he's, right away, tons of color differences. It's like somebody took a picture of Man-at-Arms and then just changed the brightness way down, because the original is much, much brighter. The orange is more intense. The green is brighter. Even his helmet is brighter, but you can see, look at the scale difference in the heads. Like, that's really something. Like, the commemorative edition's head is much larger. Like, the sculpt is a lot closer on Man-at-Arms, but it's just been scaled, so the plastic that they use for the breastplate on the original is much softer and more rubbery than this. The new one is kind of more rigid, and if you look at the tabs on their back, you can see that the original here is actually made with thicker plastic. On these commemorative ones, I would not recommend taking the armor off ever, because I don't think the plastic would survive. Everything else looks pretty much the same. The color difference is really hard to miss on these guys, though. The new one is much more, or the commemorative version is much more muted than the original. but man, that head size is just weirding me out. So let's take a look at The King of Castle Grayskull, an illustrated book with purchase. Here we've got He-Man attacking Skeletor on Battle Cat, who's left his hat behind for some reason, while Teela watches on with Grayskull in the background. In the mini-comics, there's often this kind of smoke rising from Grayskull, and that'll form into a skull when it actually speaks to He-Man, so it's supposed to be like the spirit of the castle. It's much more menacing, but if you can't tell, I'm kind of a bigger fan of the mini-comics, the mini-comic version of He-Man, than the Filmations. Of course, I grew up with the Filmation cartoons, but the comic version just seems a bit more sword and sorcery, a little more grim than the Filmation series. So this is the original release of the comics that were just one big image and a blocks of text, so it was more like a storybook before it took on later like the more traditional panel comic format. On his way home from battle, He-Man, the greatest of the Masters of the Universe, halted Battle Cat near the mysterious fortress, Castle Grayskull. The castle was built by unknown hands before the Great Wars, he said to Battle Cat. It is said that whoever controls the castle controls the universe. So there it's very clearly stated why Skeletor wants it. Riding away from the castle, He-Man was unaware of a skull-faced figure watching from a parapet. And yes, of course, Skeletor is up on the castle already. Skeletor is zapping Teela with his power sword. Skeletor, Lord of Destruction and the most cunning, fiendish villain on the planet Eternia, wielded his energy blade. Mystical forces created in another dimension shot from the blade to form a magic lens. Now, said Skeletor to himself, let us see what wonders are happening within Castle Grayskull. An image of beauty slowly appeared in the lens. Ah, it is the warrior goddess, smiled Skeletor. Okay, so he's seeing a vision of her with his sword. I didn't realize that his sword had connected to the castle's Wi-Fi. Teela listened as the spirit of the castle spoke. So she's seeing what he's seeing? I'm not sure. Teela listened as the spirit of the castle spoke. Legends tell of a warrior who will find the split halves of the power sword. One half is hidden at Eternia's highest point, the other is beneath its hardest rock. With both halves, he can enter the castle and claim the throne and the secrets of the universe. You are to be a guardian here. Thank you, Teela replied. This is an honor. Yeah, this is pre the sword being the transformative power for He-Man. The two halves of the sword on the toy where you could put them together and it would form a key to the drawbridge on the castle. Oh, Stratos. They forgot to make him gray here, so it's just like strips of flesh hanging off him, like fur flesh. That's disgusting. Skeletor then swore that he would become king of the Castle Grayskull by making the legend come true. But first he needed the halves of the power sword. Eternia's highest point is the mountaintop realm of my winged enemy, Stratos, he said. Finding its peak, Skeletor saw the sword, half buried in rock. Using the hottest blast of his energy blade, he freed the half-weapon from its bed. Stratos does nothing. Meanwhile, the second clue can refer only to the hard rock upon which He-Man built his home, grinned Skeletor. Now this is referring to like the savage He-Man who built a house out of rock after the goddess gave him his power armor in the mini-comics. With obedient Merman to aid him, Skeletor went to He-Man's home. Before He-Man could grab one of his superpower outfits, it's referring to the harnesses that he wears, Merman attacked. Not even Battle Cat could protect his master. As He-Man fell, Skeletor's energy blade revealed the other half of the coveted power sword. Doesn't seem right to see Merman whipping He-Man, but he is without his amazing armor, so but come on, Battle Cat. Skeletor left Merman to finish off the fallen foe, then set out on foot for Castle Grayskull. He paused only to disguise his scully face with grayish clay. When he reached the castle, he looked up at its gray-skulled facade, and he boldly thrust both halves of the power sword into the stone lock. A grating, creaking sound came from the castle. The drawbridge opened to swallow its new king. So Skeletor has effectively won in this part. He's opened the drawbridge. I don't think he ever really made it that far in the Filmation cartoon. Teela trustingly waited, and the disguised Skeletor walked through the castle and rode to the upper level on the elevator. She saw that his face was much like that of the castle's own facade. You must be the king, exclaimed Teela, but I did not expect you to arrive so soon. Don't waste a king's time with chatter, woman, he bellowed. Just show me to my majestic throne. And he Skeletor revealing his true nature there. With feelings of triumph and contempt, Skeletor seated himself on the throne. Though it was ancient, the throne moved, and Skeletor recognized its secret devices and controls. What power he would have. "How may I serve you, Majesty?" asked Tila. "This way," he laughed, wiping off the disguising clay, as he turned the throne 90 degrees to face a door, a trap door that opened beneath Tila there falling. And a lot of this is talking about the features that the actual toy playset of Castle Grayskull had, with the elevator on the previous page and the throne that turned and made a section of the floor drop away. There's even the ladder inside the castles illustrated here. Alone on the upper level, Skeletor gazed at his new domain, marveling at the wonders of the civilization that had built the castle. He saw computers, monitor screens, weapons, and many wonderful controls. "These things are mine," he shouted to the unseen spirit of the castle. "The secrets of the universe are now at my command. Soon Eternia and all other worlds would belong to me. I am now king." I just want a t-shirt of this picture of Skeletor with it just says, "These things are mine," underneath of it. Uh-oh. Looks like He-Man's got his power suspenders back, and Merman's laser corner on the cob sword is just bouncing off his chest. Oh, Battle Cat is gonna maul him. As Skeletor studied the many marvels of the castle, Merman was still engaged in a losing battle. "You should have hurried back to your sea when you had the chance," yelled He-Man, "because I have had time to get into my force field garment." As Merman aimed for a closer blast at He-Man, an angry roar filled the air, and Battle Cat made a successful attack, turning the tide of battle. Now Skeletor is watching on his television as He-Man, loaded for bear, is coming in hot on Battle Cat. Battered and defeated, Merman limped away to heal his wounds. He-Man put on another outfit that increased his already great strength. Then, mounting Battle Cat's saddle, he rode towards the distant castle to find Skeletor and the Power Sword. "You survived that dull-witted Merman," said Skeletor as on a monitor he watched He-Man approach the castle, "but you will not survive King Skeletor." Whoa! He-Man vaulting through the drawbridge there. He-Man dismounted from Battle Cat and cautiously moved towards the castle. He knew that only the complete Power Sword could open the castle's drawbridge. Nevertheless, He-Man tugged at the closed drawbridge with all of his superhuman strength. "It appears He-Man needs aid," said Skeletor, opening the drawbridge by means of a panel control, and thus flipping the surprised hero into the castle. He was trying to pull it open. I'm not sure how those physics work, but I think that was probably an error of Skeletor. And here's He-Man, looks like trapped in some kind of power field. "Castle Grayskull now has its king," taunted Skeletor. "Are you not going to kneel to the king? You'll not be so glib once I wipe that grin from your face, skull-faced fiend," threatened He-Man. "We shall see, oafish one," laughed Skeletor. So far I think Skeletor's ahead in the insults in this one. His fingers moving to one of the throne-hidden controls to release a barrage of jolting energy. Darkness came swiftly to He-Man. Dang. When consciousness returned to He-Man, he was in a dank dungeon with another prisoner. "Tila," he gasped. "Skeletor has gone insane." He already was insane. He's a floating skull man with a bodybuilder's body. "We must escape," she exclaimed. "We must stop him before he masters all of the castle's secrets." "Be thankful that the fiend did not strip me of this garment of strength," replied He-Man as he tore the ancient cell door from its hinges. Another tactical error by Skeletor. Having mastered more of the castle's detection devices, Skeletor was aware of his foe's escape. These fools have evaded one trap only to be preyed at others more deadly," he bragged, as he activated the control near his throne. In response, empty suits of armor moved to the weapons racks, taking instruments of death from the cache. They then marched toward He-Man and Tila. But He-Man's just punching the armor to pieces, and Tila's thrashing him with her snake staff. Wanting to watch his enemies defeat, Skeletor took the Power Sword and stepped back from the throne. He-Man continued to battle the moving but lifeless army. When one armor fell, another took its place. Enjoying He-Man's almost sheer defeat, Skeletor forgot about the warrior goddess. Then suddenly he felt a hard blow from Tila's spear. Something fell from Skeletor's hands. "My Power Sword!" he screamed. There's He-Man smashing a suit of armor with another one's leg. and Tila is disarming Skeletor. As the power sword hit the floor, it split back into halves. Moments later, the remaining suits of armor crashed uselessly to the floor. There was no time for Skeletor to reach the power sword. Now I must escape, cried the would-be king. Bolting to the upper level of the castle, Skeletor reached a ladder that led to the parapets. Bolting to the upper level of the castle, Skeletor reached the ladders that led to the parapets. His angered enemies were close in pursuit. Ah yes, and on the roof of the Castle Grayskull toy there was a laser cannon, so they're going through all the features here. It's very thorough. Reaching the roof, Skeletor saw the castle's laser cannon. Leaping to the weapon, he aimed it at the pursuing warrior and warrior goddess. Down, He-Man shouted to Tila as deadly energy bolts blasted at them. He felt the heat of the beam and smelled the singeing of his hair. If that ray hits us, we'll be burned to ashes. Skeletor fired again. There was no time for delay. In a blurred movement, He-Man lunged forward with a speed incredible for a man his size. Who would have thought that much meat could move that fast? With a powerful shove, he turned the laser cannon's direction of fire. Less than a moment later, He-Man was upon his worst enemy. The battle ends now, said He-Man, after their struggle brought them ever closer to the parapet's edge. Nothing could prevent their fall. Oop, they're going over the side. He-Man's super strength garbage absorbed the impact of the fall, but Skeletor would not accept defeat. He might have destroyed He-Man with the energy blade had he not heard a guttural scream. He-Man's battle cat, cried Skeletor, as the great feline lashed at him with a paw. Battle Cat did not have to make a second swipe, for the once king of Grayskull was fleeing for his life. How many moons does Eternia have? Good grief. With Skeletor departed, the spirit of the castle, there's the smoky skull emanating from the castle, appeared again. I must make sure that the halves of the power sword are never again used for evil, said the chilling voice. I shall send them into another dimension where the even clever Skeletor will have great difficulty finding them. T-Man and Tila watched the divided power sword shimmer with eerie energy and then fade away. So apparently they can never open the drawbridge again. Centuries may pass before the true king comes to claim the throne and fulfill the prophecy of the legend. Said the spirit. Go then, masters of the universe, and fight evil wherever you find it. He-Man and Tila did as ordered. As they departed, the spirit of the castle seemed to smile, knowing that at the proper time, He-Man would prove himself to be the true king of Castle Grayskull. And here it's just line art illustrations of some cross-sell stuff, including one of the vehicles, the Wind Raider. And on the very back, we've got more illustrated things. Castle Grayskull, Fortress of Power and Mystery. And the Battle Ram carries warriors through space and time. I did not know the Battle Ram was also a time machine. And of course, Battle Cat, the fighting tiger. And here you'll notice that a lot in the early art, He-Man has this double-bladed axe instead of the sword, since he's, much more of a kind of barbarian figure in the early comics, which I think is why I like them better than the Filmation interpretation. So there we have Man-at-Arms, or Duncan, whichever you prefer, in his 2000 commemorative reissue, and the original. I probably have a slightly later run than the original, given that he has a 1983 stamped on his back. I'm not sure if that would account for the color drift or what, because I'm sure there is different shades of him out there, but the one I have is very much more of a vibrant green than the reissue. The head really is concerning when you see them next to each other. And these are a lot of fun to open and go through the comics again, so it's a neat experience. Thanks again for watching, and I'll have a couple more of these commemorative guys to open and compare with the originals.